Welcome back. Today I am working on the passenger side. I've did a little work off camera last night and I've managed to replace everything on the driver's side. So now I have a better understanding of how to replace the tie rods, the hub, and everything else. So to start, gotta get this outer tie rod out. And last night I sprayed this whole thing down with some PB Blaster. I know people argue ATF is better, but PB Blaster is just what I had. So just penetrating oil. It's better to have it than not to have it. First and foremost, I forgot if I mentioned this last time, but I went to the auto parts store and I borrowed one of these tie rod removal tools because I don't have a pipe wrench. I don't have anything to take the inner tie rod out, so I've went ahead and borrowed one of those tools, which works extremely well. I will show you in a second here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the outer tie rod out. I'm going to count how many turns I've made, and hopefully this comes out easily, because yesterday it gave me a whole lot of trouble. Get my lovely little hammer, start banging away. I just realized that that support isn't going to help at all. There we go. Alright, so that's loose. Okay, so now the outer tie rod is loose. I'm going to count how many turns I've made, and I'm going to write it down on this piece of paper. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 16 and a half. Same for the other side. Okay, now I know. Oh, I gotta take this bolt off. Take this nut off, because my new tie rods did not come with a new nut. I don't think these tie rods were ever changed, and this truck has about 200,000 miles, just under 200,000 miles. So it's a proper time to change it. Now, after I'm done with the whole thing, I'm gonna have to take it to the alignment shop to get aligned. Yeah, I know you can do it at home, but that means buying more equipment, which I don't really want to do. So here's that little nut. I'm just gonna clean it because I'm going to reuse it. Now that we have the outer tie rod removed, time to remove the inner tie rod. So for this, we need to remove this rubber boot first. Or not rubber boot, I don't know what this material is. So it's just this little clip right here. Comes out. I might reuse that, I might not. And then now for the inside, it's kind of hard to reach. So I'm gonna take my little pliers. Yeah, I can't really reach that from here, so I think I'll just use a little screwdriver. Alright, so after a little finessing, I got this out. Technically you can reuse this, but I'm just gonna replace it with a zip tie, because I can. There we go. Look at that, bone dry. This thing is bone dry. Anyway, since I'm reusing this one, I'm just gonna go wash it and let it dry while I'm doing this stuff. Now it's time to remove the inner tie rod. So first of all, we need to bend back this locking washer. So for this, just a little screwdriver, or where's my pry bar? Basically, hit it with the hammer and make sure this inner tie rod can turn, and then we will remove it with the inner tie rod tool. Alright, cool. So now that the locking washer is bent back, what we want to do is we want to take our little crow's foot attachment, This is the 1.5 inch. Take our tool, slide it in there, lock the attachment in place, get a little breaker bar that's a 1/2 inch, so get your thing here and get that off. It's not on there super tight. I think the torque spec is only like 50 something. Oh shit. Alright, so this is the locking washer I was bending back. Let me show you what a new one looks like. This is what a new one looks like. There are little tabs here. Well, I'll just show you on this one. There are little tabs that grab onto the rack and pinion right here. And then what you do after you install this is you want to hit this with a hammer, wrap it around the indentations here on the tie rod, inner tie rod, so it does not spin or come loose actually. So here's my inner tie rod. I mean, this one is fine, but it's just more play than I want. I mean, there's no inside outside play. What do you call this? Lateral play? Is that the right word? I don't know. Resistance is okay. However, I mean, since I'm just practically rebuilding the front end, why not? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put the CV axle in and then remove the caliper and remove all this stuff because I feel like that might be a little easier. There we go. Alright, now that my axle's in, I can turn it a little bit. First thing I'm going to remove is the speed sensor back here. Just need a little screwdriver. Pop the sensor out. 17mm socket. 2 bolts around back holding the brake calipers. Now, before you take the brake caliper off, it's wise to take the bracket holding your brake line and your speed sensor off, and that is a 12mm socket right here on this side. Make sure you have something to hold the brake caliper once it's off, because you don't just want it dangling because you'll mess up your brake lines. I think what I did last time was I took a breaker bar. Ow, hit myself in the knee. I think I took a breaker bar. My socket's trying to escape from me. Alright, so after some finessing, I finally got the brake caliper off. I had to put the knuckle bolt in, and it turns out I keep turning it the wrong way. I keep tightening it. So I've managed to actually crack this socket. So that's real fun. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. I just cannot, you know, once I'm on the other side of the truck or wherever I'm working on, that just goes over my head. I don't know which way to turn. So, but that's off now. So here we have our rotor. Fairly good condition. Set that off to the side, and now it's time to take off the hub, which is these 4 bolts here. And for that we need a 17mm wrench, maybe a little pipe extension. These aren't on there super tight. Gotta pry this off. There we go. Here's my old bearing. Let's see what it is. This is oh, this one's NSK. This one is OEM bearing. My left side, driver's side, came out to be a Moog aftermarket bearing. There's my CV axle out. I got it out. Holy shit. That only took like 30 minutes. There we go. Here's my axle. Now that my axle's out, I am reversing that executive decision I made in the beginning of the video. And I'm going to replace the seals. First I gotta fix this. Now it's time to pull out the old seal and put in the new seal. Can you see this? The seal is out. Nice. Now, it's pretty mangled, but I'm going to compare with my new one. Let's compare the diameter. Exact diameter, same as before. It's a little thinner in terms of depth than the one that's already in here, than the old one. Maybe it's just the new part, since the old part number has been discontinued. So that could be the reason. So a little warning before you do this. On the passenger side, there isn't really a lip. There's a tiny one right here, but there's not really a hard stop. So you could drive this seal in further than it's supposed to. Now, the manual calls, well, the service manual calls for, I think, 5.5. I didn't make the tool for it. I got lazy. I just made a little ring for me to hammer. But just make sure that the outside of this seal is flush with the outside. You don't want to drive this too far in, otherwise it would cause interference. Now, for dealers have the special service tool, but we don't. And the stupid tool is like $200 just to put a seal in. So we're not gonna do that. So we're just gonna eyeball this like how we did the left side. Hopefully I don't mess anything up. And but yeah, I'm gonna clean this a little bit. Inside seems a little dirty. The passenger side is a ball bearing instead of a needle bearing like the driver's side. So this side doesn't need to be replaced. This side is fine. It's just a needle bearing on the driver's side that goes out when you have a lift. You get started with the hammer. This side went in a lot better than the driver's side because I put the grease on there. So, alright, so after measuring with the caliper, the depth all around with multiple readings are somewhere between 6 and 5.5. Well, actually, no. Let's see, it needs to be 5.5 to 5.8, I think. Let's see, what's this reading over here? 6.3, 5.5, 6.4. So one side is a little further in. So I'm just very, very carefully pulling it out by hand. Now that the hub's on, I'm gonna put on the rotor, the calipers, the brake pads, and then lastly, I'm going to do the tie rod. Now it's time for the inner tie rod. Again, this is the 555 brand, made in Japan, inner tie rod. And this is an OEM locking washer. So you see these two notches, if you can. There are two notches on your inner rack and pinion shaft right here. I think you just kind of want to take that out real quick. I'll take this out first. Alright, so here's the new inner tie rod. Very greasy, very good, that's what we want. Made in Japan, 3.5 brand. Very cool. Now, washer with the two tabs facing outward or inward. And then you kind of just screw this on by hand for now. Make sure the two wings on the back of the washer goes into the notches onto the rack and pinion, onto your steering rack. Now, after you screwed that on by hand, it's time to torque it. So for the factory surface manual, calls for 45 foot-pounds with the SST, the special service tool, or 65 with without the special service tool. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm just going to go right in the middle at 50 foot-pounds. Lock this into place. Alright, 50 foot-pounds. 50 foot-pounds. Alright, this is a little tricky part. You might need a hammer or a screwdriver. You need to hammer the washer towards you. So the angles are a bit weird. But on the bottom one here, I can just... Alright, now the difficult part is the left side. So, I mean the upper one. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. Alright, now that's back on. Time to install the brand new outer tie rod. So, earlier we've measured that this is 16.5 turns, so I'm going to start off at the bottom position, pointing down. I'm going to start turning. 1. You know what? It might help to put the lock nut in first. About there. Start off right here. 1, 2, 15, 16. That's on there. Alright. Since I'm going to get an alignment after this, I'm just going to keep this like that. Alright, cool. So, next step is I'm gonna reassemble all of this, clean off my brake rotors, and then I'm going to clean and install the sway bar with the new sway bar end links. So I'm going to do that right now. Alright, now that that's on, I had to straighten my wheel. That's on. Now we put on the castle nut, the provided castle nut, and the cotter pin onto your tie rod. Make sure it's torqued down to 67 foot-pounds. And don't forget the cotter pin at the end. 67 foot-pounds. 67 foot-pounds. And now, don't forget your cotter pin. Now that's done. It's time to torque the bottom two bolts into 118 foot-pounds. 118? Yep, 118 foot-pounds. And then the axle nut to 173 foot-pounds. 118. 118. Now for this very delightful bolt or nut, this needs to go 173 foot-pounds. 173. Alright. So now all we need to do is to put this nut back on, or this adjuster nut on here. And then our cotter pin. There's our cotter pin. Now, our hub dust cap is a little small. So, going to do some field modifications. Gonna have to bend some of the edges out so that it will fit. Yes, I should just go get a new one, but I don't want to. So I'm gonna put some anti-seize, just a tiny little bit of anti-seize, very small amount of anti-seize on the rim. Voila! Alright, now it's time to put the sway bar back in, and then I'm finally gonna be done. Oh, sway bar and then the end links, but that's super easy, so. Alright, it's really warm, I'm really tired. I'm going to put in the sway bar. These are my new bushings. The bushings doesn't need to be left or right, but the opening should be facing towards the rear of the vehicle. And for the bracket, the side with the opening faces the front of the vehicle. And that's a pretty good fit. Awesome, so I'm gonna put this on. Hopefully you guys can see this. If not, I'll just show you guys afterwards. Well, now it has been 2 days since I've completed the installation of everything up front. I had to walk away from it, man. It was just so frustrating. It was killing me. So, but now it's finally finished. Well, almost 90% finished. I'll tell you why in a little bit. I'm just gonna show you what my front end looks like right now. All right, so you can see in the last clip, this is what I installed, which is a new sway bar bushing. This new Moog one is a little smaller than the OEM one, or the one I had previously. So it was a little tough, but with the help of an impact wrench, I got those 2 bolts on pretty tight and good. So that's not going anywhere. Now, moving on over here, you can see my new inner and outer tie rods. My brand new CV axle. The angle is not as good as, you know, it's not straight, right? That inner boot is definitely going to wear out, you know, in a couple thousand or 10,000, 20,000 miles. So I'm going to be prepared for that. Maybe I'll upgrade that to the high angle boot. However, the outer CV boot axle angle is quite okay. New stuff in there, new hub. I don't think you can see that. Also, I've changed the differential oil, or gear oil, gear fluid, whatever it's called. Here's the pack, actually. Valvoline, full synthetic, 75W90. I know ECGS calls for a heavier oil. However, a lot of people are still using the OEM recommended oil, and it's been fine. So I'll just stick with the OEM oil, even though, you know, I have an aftermarket part in there. We'll see how long it'll last. I will deal with the consequences. So now we're on the passenger side. Let me show you what it looks like. It should look exactly the same as the driver's side because everything is exactly the same. Now, little story. I got this thing aligned yesterday. They said the left side was 0.88 off. I don't know what that means. The truck was pulling to the right after I was done with it. So, I mean, obviously I did this myself. I don't have the tools, the proper tools to perfectly align it, right? That's just the nature of this, and I don't have alignment tools to get it aligned. So, you know, counting turns and stuff, yeah, it drove straight. I mean, it got me to the alignment shop. So after all of this, it's driving okay. It drives, it's good. It drives in a straight line. However, the thing that still haunts me is that clicking noise. That click, 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 and then when I hit the brakes, it stops. I don't know why I didn't think of this in the beginning before I spent almost $3 grand to, you know, rebuild the front end. I never really thought it was the brakes. So I think I found a solution. So the new part that will potentially solve this issue is coming in today. However, I can't wait for this video, so that'll be in the next video. So I will either be really, really pissed, yeah. Or, I mean, I don't think I'll be pissed, but because I rebuilt the front end, I don't have to rebuild it for, gosh, like 200,000 miles maybe, I hope. But I'll just be really disappointed because it's a really, really cheap part. And if that fixes my problem, there's a lesson to be learned somewhere, right? So, I mean, I did enjoy the whole experience, right? It was a very, very nice learning experience. I get to keep all the tools, right? Yes, I could have gone to my mechanic and saved about 2/3 of what I spent. However, it gave me something to do for a week or two. And I don't know if I regret it or not, but it is what it is. I'm here right now. Truck works. And hopefully in the next video, it'll be 100% working without the clicking noise. So yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next video.